live with our parents, and finding a 40-year-old man asking his mother for bread is more common than otherwise. This phenomenon is known as the Ramaphosa economy. Joblessness, poverty, and constantly questioning if we are truly the young adults of today. In 2018, Mr. President, you launched the Jobs Summit.
She's fearless, she's unapologetic, and she's shaking up South Africa's political landscape. Meet Naledi Chirwa, the youngest member of parliament for the EFF, who's taking on the government, tackling corruption, and standing up for the youth. In this video, we dive deep into the powerful journey of a woman who's not afraid to speak truth to power, from leading student protests to calling out President Ramaphosa himself. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more inspiring content like this. Naledi Chirwa is a South African politician and former student activist from Gauteng. She represents the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, in the National Council of Provinces. Chirwa was born on July 22, 1993 in Vosloorus, East Rand in Gauteng. She was raised by her grandmother in Naledi, Pretoria. Chirwa earned a Bachelor of Arts and an honors degree in Drama and Film Studies at the University of Pretoria. As of 2019, she was pursuing a Master of Arts in Theatre and Performance at the University of the Witwatersrand. She joined the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, in 2015 and became a member of the party's student command at the University of Pretoria. In 2016, Chirwa was involved in student protests relating to the #FeesMustFall movement. She was later arrested and suspended on campus as part of her bail conditions. In the May 2019 general election, she was elected to the National Assembly of South Africa and became the EFF's youngest member of parliament. On June 25, 2019, she delivered her maiden speech during the State of the Nation Address debate. She was forced to withdraw a comment about the government being complicit in the murders of #FeesMustFall activists.
The EFF for the very first time to respond to your stale, empty, and meaningless State of the Nation address. Today, 25 years after the attainment of political freedom, the face of poverty, of landlessness, unemployment, homelessness, of poor health, of abuse, is still largely black.
In January 2022, she trended on Twitter for calling President Cyril Ramaphosa toothless and a weak little boy. From around 2020, Chirwa was subject to social media attacks from anonymous users who claimed without substantiation that she was a Malawian national and that her family had fraudulently obtained South African citizenship. In January 2022, she responded to the allegations by tweeting, "You can lie to yourselves about my nationality until you turn green in the buttocks. It will not make your lies the truth, and neither will it ever silence me. I didn't buy my voice. I'm not renting it either. Rest assured, I will always speak, and there's nothing you can do about it." In a debate on South African President Ramaphosa's opening of Parliament address on Friday, July 19, 2024, Naledi Chirwa fearlessly came out guns blazing, saying he has failed the nation and the youth will fight his government to a bitter end. Standing before the House, she said before the president, "We know who the true criminals are." She further stated, "We also know who the money launderers are," a reference to the Fela scandal.
Chief of the EFF, Julius Sendo Malema, EFF officials, commissars, the leaders of the Progressive Caucus, and sympathizers of the revolutionary movement in Africa that turns 11 years old on the 27th of July. To be young is to be in a stage of becoming, of working towards your goals and aspirations to transition from being dependent to independent. However, the youth of this country are perpetual children, and some will never know independence until their old age. At the realization of how doomed we are under your leadership, Mr. President, thousands continue to give in to Nyaupe, and young women and girls amount to bottle girls for you and your friends at the peak of their vibrancy and zeal for life and prosperity. We live with our parents, and finding a 40-year-old man asking his mother for bread is more common than otherwise. This phenomenon is known as the Ramaphosa economy. Joblessness, poverty, and constantly questioning if we are truly the young adults of today. In 2018, Mr. President, you launched the Jobs Summit and promised the youth of this country 275,000 jobs per year. You failed. In 2019, you promised 2 million jobs and an end to hunger, halving of crime, and empowering the school curriculum where a 10-year-old will be able to read for comprehension. You failed. In 2020, you unveiled a 100 billion rand fund to create jobs in the public sector for the youth. You failed. You launched the NSP against GBV and femicide, and 4 years later, on the eve of elections 2024, the murderer of Kirisaleti El Sindonje was granted bail of 2,000 rands. You failed. In 2021, you spoke about building new cities and the National Youth Development Agency would fund 1,000 young entrepreneurs in 100 days. You failed. In 2022, plagued by your own failures over the years, you promised the National Youth Service would create a modest 50,000 jobs in its first phase. You failed. In 2023, you came here and praised yourself for the Youth Employment Service that placed 100,000 youth in peace jobs that lasted nothing more than 12 months. Once again, you failed. Yesterday, you came to this house and promised 2 million jobs to the youth of South Africa. It is thus fair and deliberate to then say that this time next year, the result will once again be not achieved and failed. When you became president in 2018, youth unemployment was sitting at 43%. And nearly 7 years into your presidency, youth unemployment currently sits at 45% for individuals aged 15 to 34 and a whopping 59% for young people aged 15 to 24. Your presidency is characterized by many and many promises and many failures. It is now apparent that as the youth of today, we must ready ourselves psychologically like the youth of 1976 for the biggest fight against the establishment. The establishment has charged you, Mr. President, at the forefront as the weapon that is formed against us. The youth of today, like Nelson Mandela, who is now hailed as an icon of peace, must be ready to be called terrorists. We must be ready to be called criminals. We must be ready to be jailed for crimes we did not commit. We must be ready to be character assassinated like Idam Dwana, Robert Sobukwe, Unko Potitiro, Steve Biko, Winnie Mandela, and Julius Malema. But amongst ourselves as the youth of this country, we know who the true criminals are. We know who stole our land from our grandmothers. We know who stole our minds. We know who stole COVID-19 funds that was meant to keep our people alive. We know who stole Tembisa Hospital money. We know who stole SAA, ISCO, Sasol, Telkom. We know who is now stealing Eskom, Transnet, PRASA, and even privatizing our water. All the while, you are creating an impression that these are natural disasters, despite the fact that they are orchestrated by the true criminals of the government of today, deployed by the Oppenheimers. We know who stole the money that is meant to eradicate pit toilets in the Eastern Cape. We know who stole NSFAS money. We know the mafias of the Steenhoff heist. We know the thugs of the Skills Development Fund. And we definitely know who the #1 money launderer is. There is absolutely nothing that the establishment, masquerading as a government of national unity, can do to deter us, the youth of today, from seeking out our generational mission. The government of the ANC has not fooled all of us. It is under the ANC that we saw privatization of state-owned entities at a large scale, much higher than that of the apartheid government. A trail of privatization that is so aggressive that even our healthcare isn't spared through the NHI. The rise of the establishment and the collapse of the state takes shape under the government of the ANC. That is the legacy of the ANC today. The positive outcomes of all of this neoliberal facade of the government of the day is that we now rightly characterize the neoliberal agenda encompassing of all its participants who are part of the GNU coalition. We now know who the enemy of economic freedom is. Even if in the past they pretended to be a part of us and spoke like the forefathers of the emancipation movement. The battle lines have been drawn. It is the subject of the Oppenheimer, the GNU coalition versus the people of South Africa. The youth of this country will continue to chant economic freedom in our lifetime. We will continue to present bills in this house that call for expropriation of land without compensation. We will continue to call for nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors. We will push back against your corruption and hold the captains of the ruling class accountable. We will fight for the scrapping of student debt and continue to call for quality, free, and decolonized education in our lifetime. We will continue to call for free healthcare, housing, water, and sanitation. We will continue to remind you that the young people in this country deserve real jobs. We want industrial development, insourcing of security guards and cleaners, free pairs, Mr. President, and all those rent manipulators to be arrested and to rot in jail. The people's power is rising in Africa, and we will not be left behind.
Chirwa accused Ramaphosa of making endless promises but failing to deliver. She also accused the ANC of corruption and incompetence, as well as capture by capital. In her charged speech, Chirwa accused Ramaphosa of so many societal challenges, saying he had failed. to solve issues such as unemployment, crime, and gender-based violence. To be young is to be in a stage of becoming, of working towards your goals and aspiration to transition from being dependent to independent. However, the youth of this country are perpetual children, and some will never know their independence until their old age. At the realization of how doomed we are under your leadership, Mr. President, thousands continue to give into NIOP, a form of black tar heroin, sometimes mixed with other substances. We live with our parents, and finding a 40-year-old man asking his mother for bread is more common than otherwise. This phenomenon is known as the Ramaphosa economy, the joblessness and poverty, she said. Chirwa has been married since October 2022. She is blessed with 2 children, one of whom was born in 2021 and the other one born in 2023. If you are inspired by this story of the young, fearless South African Member of Parliament Chirwa Naledi, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring content and leave a comment. Thank you for watching.